Hi everyone, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. I am Bonnie Krebs, creator of Watercolor the Art Impressions Way. And this week we're going to keep working our way through our newest releases. So this week's project is, we're going to be using the die set. So this is new this season and it's a set of fences. So there's actually 5 in here. They all work the same way. So once you see how to use them, you're going to be able to use all of these fences in here. And in future projects, I'm going to be using them all anyway. So for this project, we're going to use this one up here in the corner. We're going to also use another one of our new releases. This is the Watercolor Cottage set. These are a little bit bigger, so we're going to use this one in between here. In addition, we're going to use the new Foliage set. So in this one, just this tiny little foliage right there. In the chair set, so the mini chair set, these little blue bonnets right here, we're going to use those. But remember, just because I'm using these doesn't mean you have to use these specific ones. All of these things are interchangeable, so use what you have. Feel free to do that. In the flower set, we're going to use the little filler flowers, so the daisy bunch. And then in the foliage set, we're going to use both sizes of the grass and the vine. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start out with the fence. So we're going to use this little fence right here, and I've cut it out with my Big Shot, and I cut it out using masking paper. So this is from Inkadoo. You can get this on our website. This is stamping mask paper, and it actually comes with 12 sheets in here. So this will last you a long, long time. These are really small dies, so you can see that you'll be able to get lots and lots out of one sheet. So it works really great. So I cut this out of that masking paper, and now I'm just going to peel the back off. So the backing would be the blue part, and I'm just going to stick this onto my watercolor paper. So just like this. Make sure it's down really tight. So just kind of run your finger over it. Make sure you've got that on there really snug, because we are using textured paper, so I want to make sure that we get that on there really tight. Okay, so the next step then will be to add some foliage to it. So we're going to start out with a large grass, and I'm using the pine green. Let me smooth this up just a little bit here. Okay, so we're going to use the pine green, and we're going to ink the large grass, and we're going to stamp it so that we can see it in between here. So this is a mask, so it doesn't matter if we stamp over the top of it, that's going to be fine. So the biggest thing is that we're getting it in between this middle area right here. So dip your brush, add some water, pinch it off, always remember to pinch it off, and just pull that color up and out just like we always do. And when you're pulling this color out, make sure you're getting it into these little corners. That's really important, that you get the color into here. So just kind of work your way across. Just like that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now we're going to come in under here, and we're going to use the small grass. And that's this one right here. We're going to use that same color. And now we're going to go over this area, so where the little posts are. And really what we're doing is just kind of surrounding this fence with color. Because when we pull this mask off, we're going to see white underneath it, so we want to make sure that we've got color all around. So again, pull this color up and out. So easy. Just like that. Don't stress out about this at all. This is just the easiest thing to do. And you'll be surprised how fun this is. Really, really fun. No freehand drawing with this. You can make a fence with a mask pen. I've done that on a couple of videos, and that's really fun too, but this is way easier because you don't have to hand draw anything. Okay, so let's go on to the next thing, and that would be to add the foliage in. So the vine. And we're just gonna kind of put this in just kind of however. And I'm gonna pull this up so that I can move my paper around a little bit. And let's put a little bit over here as well. Some down in here. And we don't have to do a lot because we're going to come back in later after we pull this off and put a bunch of foliage in here. So that's about all we have to do right now. So let's dip your brush in water. And again, just soften all this up, just like we normally do. Just make sure you're getting your brush down inside, in between this mask. Because it is a little thicker. I mean, as far as paper goes, it's pretty thin, but it still does have a ridge. So you want to make sure you get that color down in there. Okay, so just like that, let's add our flowers now to it. And I'm using, actually this time I'm using 93 Aubergine. I love this color. So we're gonna use that, mix it up a little bit. And we're using the little daisy bunch. So you know that walks around in a circle. Even as you're stamping it over this mask, you're still gonna go in a circle. And I'm just inking a few of these little guys, so I'm not doing a lot. Okay, just like that. Looks pretty good. And then add your water to it. You can always come back in and add a few more flowers or foliages or vines or whatever afterwards. So again, so I'm getting this way down in here, really making sure that my little fence is surrounded with color. Including this down in here. And I'm just going to add a few more little vines in here just to make sure that I'm getting enough foliage all around. That looks pretty good. And we're just about ready to take this little fence off. We're going to come back down over this. I'm not too concerned about getting color back in behind here, so we're going to come back over that. And you can see from the original, that foliage drapes over the top of the fence. So the more that you do this, the more options you have, and you can try all kinds of things. So fun. Okay, so let's take this little mask off now. And you can see our little fence in behind there. We're going to do some more to it, but first we're going to take the vine and we're going to just add some more of this foliage to this. So I'm just inking this. I'm not inking the whole thing. Just about half of it. And I'm just really draping these vines over the top. I want to make sure that I really show that that's coming over the top of the fence. And you can add a few more in here. It's so much easier to just turn your paper when you're doing things like this. Okay, so now let's add some more water to it. So easy and fun. Remember, you're just jumping your brush around, so don't be doing any painting strokes. You're just brushing this around. Okay, so now we're going to add some flowers to this. So we're going to use those little blue bonnets, and we're going to make them blue. So this is African Violet, and I'm just inking the two on the left. So just these two right here. And you're just going to stamp them in here a couple of times. So over the top of that fence. We want it to look three-dimensional, so we don't want the fence to look like it's sitting in front of all of this foliage. We want it to look like it's sitting in between. So we want to make sure we get these things in the front as well. And then just dab at this. So you can still kind of see the integrity of the stamp, but we're still blending it, softening it up. So cute. Okay, now let's come back into the fence, and we're going to use a little African Violet, so just on your palette and really, really lightly with just the tip of your brush. Okay, just the tip of your brush. Very lightly, just pick up some of this blue color, and you're going to go underneath these lines. So right where we stamped, or right where the mask was, you're going to just go underneath here. Doesn't have to be perfect. Always remember that. It really does not have to be perfect. So across the top, just like this. And in the center. It's a little too flat if we don't add this blue on here like this. And you can see what a difference that makes when you add this blue. Just kind of pops it out. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we're about finished with that. So let's go ahead and put our little structure in here in the back. So cute, and you can do this with any structure. So this is one of our newest ones, this cottage, but you can use any structure and put it back in here. So I want to kind of hide it back in this foliage a little bit. So I'm going to use my positioner. Whenever I don't want to guess, I use my little positioner because it just makes such a difference when you know exactly where you're placing something. So we're going to ink this little cottage in 2 colors. So African Violet. African Violet and Sepia. We want a gray tone. We want it really, really light. So we don't want a lot of color. The focal point is that little fence in the front. So we want to make sure that that's where our focal point is. So we don't want to see that little cottage back there too much. Very, very light. So let's just stamp this in the corner like this. And we're going to tuck this back down in here. So back inside the foliage, about like that. That looks pretty good to me. So we're going to place this in here. And I'm just going to put a little Post-it note in here so that I can cover that area. And then I'm going to just stamp this off a little bit so that I don't get it too dark. And I've got my little house back in there, tucked back in the background. So now I'm going to dip my brush and just begin to pull this color out. This is very, very subtle back here, so don't get too much. It's kind of fading out to the background a little bit, little white house. Even though things are white, they're never 100% white, so you're going to see some shadows. This is kind of an old cabin, so I feel like it's going to have some gray on it. So let's add some more color to our palette, sepia, and let's just brush in some color to the roof. Keep it light. Always remember to leave a little highlight on the top. It's always better not to color things in solid. So just leave a little highlight on there. You're always going to be happier with it that way. So let's take a little color. Now this is African Violet, and just use the tip of your brush and just a little bit of color, and let's put in a little detail in these windows. Just a little bit. It's always worth it to take that time to do these little details, and they're kind of fun too. They don't have to be perfect, remember that. These don't have to be perfect little squares. I love that about these projects, is that you don't have to be careful. So I'm putting a little color into the chimney now. And let's add one more coat now to the roof. And you can see I'm kind of staying away from the edges. It's always better not to color everything clear to the edge. Okay, that looks pretty good. Got our little house in the background. So let's add some color now in the back. We're about to almost finished with this little project, but I'm going to take some pine green now, and I'm just going to add a little color to the background. So do this with your brush. Just brush in a color back here. This is really in the distance. And again, this isn't our focal point, so we're just adding a little bit of color back in here, just to show some foliage in the background. And we'll let that dry a little bit, and we'll add some color now to the sky. So that's the African Violet again. So we're just going to brush a little of this in the background. Don't touch that sepia because that will just bleed right into your beautiful blue sky. So kind of keep your brush away from there. And remember, less is more when you're doing the sky. You don't want to overdo it. So a little bit like that is pretty good. Okay, so let's take the tiny little vine now. This is just a little tiny one. And we're going to ink that in the number 72. And we're just going to stamp this in here a few times like this. And maybe just a few back in here as well. And that gives us our little foliage in the background. Very subtle. And we are about done with this little project. Let's just put in this little detail again. This is the fine tip of my sepia. I use this all the time. Okay, we are about finished. One thing left to do, and that is to sign and date. And put that on a card or put it in a frame and give it away. You are going to make someone so happy. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. Please give me a thumbs up if you did, and I will see you all next week.